Kavanaugh has the votes. More senators show their support for the Supreme Court nominee, making his confirmation all but certain. And protecting their health, students line up for vaccines after a meningitis outbreak at SDSU.
During political seasons, when there are hot-button issues, we sometimes see an increase in bigoted behavior, particularly against certain groups.
Extreme rhetoric and the race for Congress in East County. We talk with researchers to find out how it's connecting with voters.
And there's hope for all those immigrants and refugees that come from other countries that are in war and battles, distress, all kinds of disasters.
And liberty on the border. Artists tell us about their vision to welcome strangers to the United States. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The Senate is planning to hold a final vote on Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh tomorrow, and now it appears his confirmation is likely. 4 key senators announced their intentions throughout the day. Republican Lisa Murkowski announced her opposition this morning, putting the nomination in doubt. But this afternoon, Republican Susan Collins and Democrat Joe Manchin announced their support.
My fervent hope is that Brett Kavanaugh will work to lessen the divisions in the Supreme Court so that we have far fewer 5-4 decisions, and so that public confidence in our judiciary and our highest court is restored. Mr. President, I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
A final vote on Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination is expected as early as Saturday afternoon. And KPBS Radio will have continuing coverage. You can also get updates on kpbs.org. As the November election draws near, campaigning for the 50th Congressional District has drifted away from the issues and has zeroed in on what researchers are calling bigoted rhetoric. KPBS reporter Jade Hyman explains.
Radical Muslims are trying to infiltrate the U.S. government.
This is the voice of Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter at a campaign event last month.
You have radical Islamist propaganda being pushed on the kids in our San Diego school district. Have you seen that?
What Hunter describes as radical Islamist propaganda is an anti-bullying program that focused on Islamophobia. This speech came hours after Hunter appeared in court on federal charges of misusing campaign funds, a case he claims is politically motivated. He slammed federal prosecutors and his opponent.
Ammar Yasser Najjar, named after Yasser Arafat. I kid you not. And he changed his name from Ammar Yasser Najjar to Ammar Campa Najjar.
Ammar Campa Najjar is the Democratic challenger in the race for the 50th District. He says he was named after his father, not Arafat. He eventually changed his middle name to pay homage to his mother. Researchers say Hunter's rhetoric at this event is racist. Professor Brian Levin is the director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at CSU San Bernardino.
This is the leading edge of something we are seeing sociopolitically, not only here in the United States, but also with respect to Europe. And that is, we are seeing a mainstreaming of nationalist and racially and ethnically immersed, not racially and ethnically tinged, but immersed rhetoric.
The language that reflects racist ideology is being echoed by some of Hunter's supporters. Retired naval captain Joseph John appears in a Hunter ad. At a recent rally, I asked him about Campa Najjar, and this is what he had to say.
He was indoctrinated in Gaza until he was 13 years old by the PLO. His father was a member of the PLO for 24 years and held very important positions.
Campa Najjar identifies as Christian. He says he went to a Catholic school in Gaza, left when he was 11, and was raised in San Diego by his mother. Researchers say the claim of indoctrination is an example of fear that's not rooted in fact.
People maintain attitudes based on 3 things: emotion, cognition, and then there's the behavioral aspect. And many people today are hearing a story that resonates with them emotionally, and the facts don't necessarily need to line up.
Levin says factual currency is worth a lot less in today's socio-political world than it was before, in part because people can revert back to group echo chambers on social media, where facts don't necessarily have currency, but anecdotes and fear do. It makes society, right down to congressional districts, more fragmented and tribal.
We've seen social media and other types of communication become weaponized.
The ideas typed out on social media eventually spill out into the real world. Levin says over the years, hate crimes and incidents of bigotry have gone down, but recently that's changed in San Diego and across the country.
During political seasons, when there are hot-button issues, we sometimes see an increase in bigoted behavior, particularly against certain groups. And we've seen that in the past, and we're seeing it repeated, we believe, now.
Recent research shows 42% of Americans polled think white people are under attack. Levin says for those people, fear often trumps facts.
As some of the research has indicated, that there are large swaths of white Americans who believe that their status is being challenged. And that comes into a whole array of fears.
Levin says hot-button political issues often stoke the fire as elections draw near, whether it's immigration, a Muslim ban, a movement that says Black Lives Matter too, LGBTQ equality, or a Mexican Palestinian running for Congress. There is anxiety for some over the changing demographics in America. Now that fear and anxiety is pushing bigotry and racism into the mainstream conversation in the race for the 50th Congressional District.
Bottom line is that line between dog whistle and bullhorn with respect to contemporary politics has now eroded. It is gone.
Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
We asked the Hunter campaign about claims of Islamophobia and its messaging and got this response. Any such claims are pure political nonsense. The campaign also says this Islamophobic claim is completely contrary to the fact that Congressman Hunter has endorsed a Muslim candidate in Omar Kudrat, running for Congress here in San Diego County. Should San Diego Unified School Board trustees be limited to 3 4-year terms? Voters will get a chance to weigh in on this question next month. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks has this look at Measure H.
The literature is mixed on whether term limits are good for governance. Studies suggest they could lead to a more diverse school board, but also one that has to lean more heavily on recommendations from the district's central office.
This is what we want.
One thing is clear, a majority of people who responded to a district survey this spring want term limits. So trustee Sharon Whitehurst Payne submitted Measure H to establish 3 4-year terms.
When you get in, you make your contribution, and you move on. And that's the way life is. There's a time and a season for everything.
San Diego City Councilman Chris Cate is against Measure H. He points out that survey respondents wanted fewer terms, and they wanted the district to move away from citywide voting for trustees, something many had hoped would be included in the measure.
It's 3 terms. It doesn't apply retroactively, so everyone gets to reset, and people who've been in office for a long time now get 3 additional terms. And again, I think it comes into having the district-only election part of it as well.
The board's longest-serving trustees have been in office for a decade. The Southwestern Community College District is also proposing trustee term limits. Measure CC would establish 3 4-year terms. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Candidates will be asking for your vote this November, but not all of them have always made it to the polls themselves. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser has details.
KPBS pulled the voting records for all the candidates running for San Diego City Council, county offices, and congressional seats. The candidate who missed the most elections was Antonio Martinez, who's running for City Council District 8, which covers San Ysidro and Barrio Logan. He missed 14 elections, including 3 presidential elections. KPBS reached out to Martinez for a statement, and he said that after he was inspired by Barack Obama in 2008, he became more active and involved. He said, quote, "Since then, like many San Diegans, I've missed a few special elections due to the demands of work and family." His opponent, Vivian Moreno, missed 5 elections, including 2 presidential elections. She didn't respond when we reached out for a statement. In the 49th Congressional District, candidate Mike Levin missed 2 elections, including the presidential primary in 2008. He didn't respond when we asked for a statement. His opponent, Diane Harkey, missed just 1 election, a special school election in 2004. She also didn't respond when we asked her for a statement. To see all the details of all the elections candidates missed, go to kpbs.org/missed. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
You can now prepare for the election with the KPBS Voter Guide. We have a link right on our homepage. It's a partnership with Voters Edge California. You'll find information on all the races and candidates right now at kpbs.org. Many voters are likely thinking about next month's election, but some are already focused on 2020. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says paid campaigners are working to stop people from signing a petition about housing.
It's the next phase of a battle over Newland Sierra, the housing development that would build more than 2,000 new homes in North County's rural backcountry. San Diego County supervisors approved the project 4-0 last month. But David Oakes is out collecting signatures for a referendum to overturn that vote.
The voters decide this issue about a very large new development the size of the Del Mar City. Do not leave it solely up to our politicians.
Opponents of Newland Sierra aim to collect more than 100,000 signatures countywide in 30 days. But signature blockers in red shirts like Joseph Harrison say don't part with your signature too easily.
We believe that the people in San Diego should have the option to hear the other side. You know, there's 2 sides to every coin, and we just want to make sure everyone is informed and educated on the facts.
Rita Brandon's with Newland Communities, the developer. She calls the signature blockers truth teams.
Well, people shouldn't sign this because, number one, they're being told misstatements about what Newland Sierra is and what Newland Sierra is not. They're saying that we're building McMansions, $1 million McMansions, where what we're really doing is bringing San Diego's working families attainable housing.
Brandon says Newland Communities has spent $12 million going through 4 years of planning with the county. She says it had cost another $3 to $5 million to educate the public for a referendum, and those costs would be passed on to consumers in the price of new homes. In North County, Allison St. John, KPBS News.
A look at a couple of contentious city council races and the battle to replace longtime supervisor Ron Roberts. Plus, San Diego's bishop asks for and gets an earful about the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
A new trade agreement, Amazon gives its workers a raise, and a new way to get groceries delivered to your home. For this week's Friday Business Report, I spoke with Mira Kopik with SDSU's marketing department and co-founder of Bottom Line Marketing, a brand and marketing consulting firm. Mira, welcome.
Thank you.
So, great news for Amazon employees. The company recently announced that it's raising its minimum wage to $15 an hour. And as we know, that's more than double the federal minimum wage. So my question to you is, what will this mean for Amazon's bottom line, and can other major companies afford to follow suit?
You know, Amazon's announcement was big because they made it immediate. So these wages, you know, most of their workers were earning around $11 an hour or more, but it really is a big increase for 275,000 Amazon workers across the United States and 100,000 temporary workers that are going to be working during the holidays. So it's a big boost in real wages for those guys. And one of the reasons why they did it is of the optics. You know, Amazon was recently crossed the $1 trillion valuation as a company. Jeff Bezos is the most wealthy man in the world, worth $165 billion, and the SEC now requires companies, public companies, to report the ratio of the CEO's salary to the lowest salary in the company. Didn't make Amazon look good. So Bezos is making a big commitment.
Muriel, so Aldi has announced this week that it's going to be offering a grocery delivery service. Is this a sustainable business model?
Actually, yes. Aldi is a chain with 1,800 stores in the United States. It's German-based. It has 5 stores here in San Diego County, and they're offering a very competitive priced home delivery model for its consumers. They're following suit, seeing what Amazon has been doing, which offer a bunch of different ways for you to get your groceries to your house, and it's forced the rest of the grocery industry, particularly big companies like Kroger, which owns Ralph's, or Safeway, which owns Vons, to offer grocery delivery and curbside pickup. Other chains like Target and Amazon are doing the same. So this is a big revolution in the grocery industry because they're really targeting millennials who really like to shop online as opposed to baby boomers and Gen Xers who actually like to go in store.
Muriel, another big story this week, the United States, Mexico, and Canada have reached a new trade deal, a new NAFTA with a new name. What's the biggest difference?
So NAFTA is now going to be called the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. And the big difference is that it's been modernized for the 21st century. You have new laws around labor, intellectual property, digital commerce. Some new sectors have been opened up for the United States and Canada in terms of pharmaceuticals and dairy. The Canadians got a big concession from the United States to keep the current arbitration structure in place from the original NAFTA that was really sought after by both Mexico and Canada. And in the end, the other winners are the auto industry as a whole because they have stability, auto workers because a lot more content has to be produced in plants where workers are earning $16 an hour. Some of the losers are companies who have to import steel from Mexico and Canada. The tariffs that the president slapped on both countries have not been lifted as part of this agreement, so that's going to continue and it's going to increase costs of different products and services. Consumers are going to pay more for cars. The same auto companies, although they're generally winners, it's going to cost them a lot more to produce a small car locally, and it's going to be much more expensive to export a car. So it kind of may be neutral, but it does create that stability.
Muriel Kopik, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, confirmation showdown. The latest moves in the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The family of Junior Seau has settled a lawsuit it filed against the NFL. Seau suffered from a brain condition that researchers say is caused by repeated concussions. In the lawsuit, his family claimed the condition led to Seau's suicide in 2012 and that the league should be held responsible. Details of the settlement has not been released. The county is working to vaccinate San Diego State students against meningitis after declaring an outbreak last week. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks was at one of the vaccination clinics this morning.
Students began lining up an hour early. Inside, county health workers were briefed on the day ahead.
We're having an outbreak of meningitis. You know, this is a rare but serious disease. You can feel good one day and the next day be hospitalized.
That's exactly what happened to 3 students since June. Public health officer Dr. Wilma Wooten says they've been successfully treated and discharged, but the Centers for Disease Control considers 3 cases in 3 months an outbreak.
That's what drove our decision to declare an outbreak here at San Diego State. So we are not saying that there's an outbreak at any other campus or any other college in San Diego.
Health officials are asking all SDSU students 23 and younger to get vaccinated against meningococcal B.
Many students have received a meningococcus vaccine, but most of them have received the conjugate or quadrivalent vaccine that protects against 4 different groups of meningococcus, A, C, W, and Y. This outbreak is meningococcus B, so that requires a different vaccine.
Doctors say students shouldn't be alarmed, but should take additional precautions like avoiding sharing food and cosmetics. Outside, nursing student Matt Dacumos says he wants to do his part.
I think it's an important thing to get vaccinated in order to stop the spread of the disease. And I'm doing my part and my due diligence in order to keep everyone else safe as well as myself.
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
San Diego State University is hosting another clinic Monday, and the Naval Medical Center is hosting a clinic next Friday for those with TRICARE insurance. Students can also visit their primary care provider or a pharmacy to get vaccinated. A new beacon of hope is being built on the border, and what organizers hope is the West Coast version of the Statue of Liberty. KPBS News reporter Priya Sridhar has the story.
With a torch held high, this representation of the Virgin Mary as Lady Liberty will stand on a hill overlooking the border on the grounds of Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. a 4-foot version of what will be a 40-foot statue that is meant to welcome the stranger to the United States.
We need to remember that there's over 200 million people in the world in a migrant status. That's a difficult place to be. And to think about it and to think of them as human beings, not just some abstract political cardboard cutout that has no meaning or no reference to themselves. We're all migrants in this country.
Today, those whose lives have been touched by immigrants wrote the names of their loved ones on a ribbon and tied it to a fence, memorializing the stories of loved ones who have immigrated or been deported from the United States.
To show them that they're not alone and that we're supporting them in any way we can help them, and that there's hope for all those immigrants and refugees that come from other countries that are in war and battles, distress, all kinds of disasters.
The plan is for the final statue to stand on the church grounds in early 2019.
To welcome a new generation of immigrants.
Members of the San Diego Organizing Project got a grant from the California Endowment to begin the statue. They're hoping to raise almost $1 million to finish it. They say the West Coast Lady Liberty will be illuminated every night. Organizers say it will be an image of hope for those crossing the border. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Well, the onshore flow continues over the course of the next couple of days. We'll have some vigorous energy diving down to our east, and that will start to stir up the winds over the mountainous terrain as well as the deserts. Could we see some changes as we head into next week? Looks like we could, at least for now. Mostly calm and quiet as we're talking about the bulk of the impacts wet weather-wise north of Interstate 80. Here's a closer inspection again around Chula Vista. Oceanside quiet. We had the morning clouds toward La Jolla. We'll see those roll back in here throughout the evening hours and persist into the overnight as we're talking about mainly quiet and clear conditions points east again from Ramona toward Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna. All right, so for tonight, clouds thickening, low temperatures dropping down into the mid-60s. And as we venture our way into Saturday, this is when we'll likely see some of the strongest wind gusts. Again, over the mountainous terrain, we're talking about some of the mountains here bordering the deserts where some of those wind gusts could exceed 30, if not 40 miles per hour. So we watch out for advisory type criteria there. Also going to be talking about some gusty wind speeds over the deserts, not quite as intense and locally breezy, even out from the shoreline towards some of the inland valleys. High temperatures for tomorrow, just a tiny bit below normal. I still think the coolest day would be Sunday. And again, to notice the numbers here around San Diego, talking about 72 degrees. Out toward Borrego Springs, again back into the 80s. Mount Laguna into the 60s. Early week, though, again, as that energy dives south and east, we could see a few wet snowflakes above 8,500 feet. Now, it's way up there, but goes to show the cooler air in place. We will start to see the onshore flow break down a bit here. But again, notice it's in full effect here Sunday with possible drizzle. Going to be talking about temperatures at their coolest. Early next week, mid next week, we'll start to see some slowly rebounding numbers. Inland locations also coolest here on Sunday. A slight warm up as we venture our way into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Mountainous terrain looking locally gusty on Saturday. A couple of showers possible here in the early morning hours. Snow levels way up there. And then we're quieting things down. The same for the deserts. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pomick. Back to you, Ebony.
More than 3 million people call San Diego and Imperial County home, with 9,000 square miles of space. As part of our KPBS Explore project, we travel to 5 communities to find out what makes them so special. Tonight, we visit Calexico. Here's the latest from our series, Where I Come From.
This is not a place where you go out and find your dreams. This is a place where you find out what your dreams are.
Everybody knows what they want here in Calexico, and everybody has a sort of ambition that I haven't felt in other cities. Since it's so small and we feel like we're not known, it instills a drive in people, like, I want to make Calexico known. I want to do this for Calexico. I want to make my city great.
I feel that if there's anything that we could do is figure out how to nurture that. And it's okay if we're not San Francisco, if we're not LA.
Calexico is definitely a hidden gem.
I think I would like to keep it that way because it's very quiet, very family-oriented.
Calexico is, for me, a very virgin town. You can do anything here.
If you go to big cities like New York, San Diego, or any other major city, they are already built. The plans are already laid out. If I dream a little bit, I would foresee Calexico as an international center for businesses across Mexico, across Latin America.
The potential is that we have sun 365 days out of the year, basically. If not, like 350 out of the year. And there's a lot of green energy going around here in California.
Investors themselves from Mexico, I've seen a few of those come here to Calexico, but Calexico is a perfect location to be able to benefit from the sister city relationship that Calexico and Mexicali has.
I think it's virgin territory, especially for the new generations. Their creativity, if they can bring that here, it's open territory for them.
You can watch the rest of this series at kpbs.org/whereicomefrom. And we'd like to hear what you think about the series. Join the conversation on our KPBS Facebook page. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.